Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I'll be going over my top 5 most anticipated films of 2022. We are just a few days into the new year, and already it just feels like more of the same, but I'm hoping and praying that people are at least a little bit starting to wake up to the reality of the situation around them, not just in the world, but also when it comes to Hollywood films as well, as most of the films that we've been getting from major Hollywood studios have been absolute drivel. But these are the films I know, River, I am exactly feeling the same way in anger and frustration with the current studio system. But what I hope is that there are at least a few films set to come out this coming year which might be able to buck those narrative trends and actually give us some entertaining cinema, entertaining film experiences. At least that is my big hope. So before going into this list of my most anticipated films of the year, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. So we got a ton of films coming out in 2022. Many of them are films that have been delayed for a long time because of the fear that's been pushed down everyone's throats over everything going on in the world. Some films are continuing to get pushed back, as we just found out earlier today/yesterday that Morbius has now been delayed a few more months, which really isn't that much of a surprise because it was going to be released in the month where films go to die, which is the month of January. And I don't think wherever you put that film, it's going to be that big of a success. Not saying that's going to be a failure necessarily, because it is indeed a Sony project, and Sony has been one of the better studios when it comes to marketing and getting people to actually go out to see their films. But as Tom from Midnight's Edge After Dark put out on Twitter, and I think he's totally right on this point, he says there's probably doing this because they're going to film some reshoots or they're going to film some cameo scenes after seeing the major success of Spider-Man No Way Home, and so they might have more connections with that film, trying to build up the hype, build up that rumor mill, which was so very successful for Spider-Man. It's not going to be nearly as successful, obviously, for this because it's going to be focusing on a brand new character, specifically one of the chief villains in the Spider-Man universe. But it's still going to be interesting nonetheless to see if indeed they do reshoots and what comes of those reshoots. All right, so going now into my top 5 in reverse order of my most anticipated films of 2022. I'm going to start off with a let's just say that this is a special commendation, or I guess a big shout out. Didn't make it onto my list, but it is one that I think actually does have some potential, and that film is going to be an honorable mention, as it were, is Death on the Nile. So this is going to be the newest Kenneth Branagh film, based on the Agatha Christie series where he plays the character of Poirot. I know that I've got a couple people on the channel, specifically Tina, the Empress of the Universe, and Laura, the Modern Major General of the channel, who are very big fans of Poirot. I know that Tina is not the biggest fan necessarily of this version of the character, since it's basically kind of turning the character. I know, River, I know, she feels the same way that Tina does. But basically that turning the Poirot character more so into I guess like a superhero type character, or more like, you know, kind of like the modern day hero character that we tend to see, which is not really what the traditional version of the character is. So I know that that's kind of the issues that she's had with it. But when you have a cast like this, again, featuring, let's see, people, you got Annette Bening in it, Russell Brand. The fact that Russell Brand is in anything after he has just truly gone through an immense awakening automatically makes me interested in a film nowadays, just because of the fact that he is a person that could easily be canceled for the things that he is calling out, for the conversations that he is having, and yet the fact that Kenneth Branagh as the director is still willing to take him on definitely makes me happy. So I'm more than excited to actually see this film because of that very reason. But we also have people like Gal Gadot in the film, Armie Hammer in the film as well, Letitia Wright is in the film, interestingly enough, so we'll see exactly, again, someone else that could easily be canceled because of the rumors about why Black Panther has been delayed. Black Panther 2 has been delayed as much is potentially because of some resistance to various mandates. Again, there's still some confusion over, you know, how true or false that actually is, but this does have a pretty strong cast, and of course you do have Kenneth Branagh coming back as the character of Poirot, which again, I personally like the first film that he did, so this is going to definitely get an honorable mention from me, and so I'm pretty excited to see this film when it definitely comes out. All right, coming in at number 5, so at the bottom of my list, but hey, it's still on my list. So there's going to be some people, I'm sure, especially some DC freaks, who are going to freak out over the fact that this is at the bottom of my list, but just be happy that it made even the list at all, because there's so many reasons for me to have a lot of worry and concerns about whether this film's going to deliver or not. But my number 5 film, and as far as most anticipated films of the year, is The Batman. That's right. The Batman. I know that it's had a lot of trailers, and a lot of people have had a lot of hype from those trailers, the new Matt Reeves Batman character. But I'm going to be honest here. I feel like the more trailers and the more footage that comes out, the more skeptical I get about it. Even though this does feature Paul freaking Dano, who everyone knows I love as an actor, when I see him in the role and when I see him in the movie, I don't see Riddler. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how they're trying to make that connection there. I mean, he is, again, someone who is coming across more as like this Jigsaw type killer character, or this almost Zodiac killer type character. And again, it's just kind of weird because obviously it's not going to be, in a more serious take on the story, it's not going to be anywhere close to, the wacky and zany version that we got in a film like Batman Forever, right, with the Jim Carrey version. But at the same time, I feel like there is a more serious way to do Riddler that doesn't feel so detached from Riddler. Even as someone who's not a major comics fan as myself, I grew up with Batman the Animated Series, and I grew up with films like Batman Forever, and so in my head, I have a certain idea of what the Riddler is supposed to be and what the character is supposed to be like. And Paul freaking Dano having that role and being a villain in the movie, in any movie, is going to be great. I mean, he's such a talented actor, and he's such a great villain, too. If you don't believe me, go ahead and, there's not a lot of reasons to watch 12 Years a Slave, but if there's one reason to watch it, look at the version of the character that he plays as one of the plantation hands. That dude can be evil and can play it very, very well. So, again, it's kind of sad just to see that character kind of getting lost, at least in the trailers, at the very least. But you have, of course, people like Jeffrey Wright in the film, who I think is pretty talented as an actor, though there are some who are obviously a little angry over his casting as Commissioner Gordon. I think that as far as the acting part of it is concerned, he's going to knock it out of the park. You also have Andy Serkis coming in as Alfred, which for me personally, I think that's cool. I think that's fine. Colin Farrell coming in with a bunch of makeup on playing Penguin. I think that could be really cool as well. So far, the makeup and effects and performance seem pretty cool because he's just so lost in it, which is awesome. And then obviously there's been a lot of talk of Robert Pattinson as well as Batman. I think that for most of the footage in the very beginning, I thought it was pretty good. And then there was that trailer that came out where he just hit the window, was like, where is it? And it just came out so weirdly, oddly. It didn't feel like Batman. It didn't feel like Bruce Wayne. It was so confusing to me. And so that's the reason why this is definitely at the lower part of my list. I'm so excited about it because it's a more serious take on the character. I was a big fan of Joker when that was a much more serious, grounded to earth variation of the character as well. So I do have some hopes for this film. But at the end of the day, I think that having too much footage being shown at this point definitely gives some cause for concern. But this film is set to come out on March 4th in the United States as well. And it says here that 2 sequels are planned and spin-off television series are development with HBO Max. And so they're planning on making this a trilogy. I think that this film will be successful. So I think that those films will definitely still continue. But obviously they're trying to build a brand new universe here, probably a more darker, realistic, grounded universe here. And I would not be surprised if they make some connections at some point to Joker down the line, even if they haven't said so at this point. All right, coming in at number 4 for my most anticipated films of the year is a film that we don't have a lot of knowledge of, and that film is Babylon. And people might be saying, why is Babylon ahead of the Batman when we don't even know that much about it? It's because it's directed and written by Damien Chazelle, who has made one of my favorite films of all time, especially in the modern era, which is the film Whiplash. And even though his follow-up big film, First Man, wasn't nearly as good, it does still show, even with the faults of First Man, it still shows that the guy knows how to make a movie. It shows that the guy does have a strong quality to him. Even La La Land, which I was not a big fan of, I do think it still shows that he has a craft as a filmmaker that is still just waiting for a good story. And so he kind of knocked it out of the park with Whiplash. Was hard to follow up that with La La Land, and then also, of course, with First Man, respectively. But I'm wondering and hoping that this might just be one film to follow up with. One of the biggest reasons is not only is he coming back to write and direct, but also you have it's being produced by various people, including as an executive producer, in fact, Tobey Maguire. So Tobey Maguire, not just going to be a supporting role in the film, but also as an executive producer. Obviously, that makes me very excited, especially with recent films featuring him, but also Margot Robbie's in the film, Brad Pitt. So you got a strong cast there. It's expected to come out December 25th of 2022. It was expected to come out last year, actually. This is one of my most anticipated films last year. But because of delays, it didn't start filming. And so it's actually just about to start filming, I think, because of various delays due to COVID. So we're hoping that the film actually gets done by the end of the year. We'll have to, of course, wait and see. But in the end, I'm excited for this film because I love Damien Chazelle, and I am excited by the fact that again, Tobey Maguire's in the film. He's an executive producer on the film and has got a strong cast. So this comes in at my number 4. Coming in at number 3, and this might trigger Tina because my top 3 feature a couple films that have one key factor in common with each other. But my number 3 most anticipated film of the year is Mission Impossible 7. So this is going to be written and directed once again by Christopher McQuarrie, who has done a lot of stuff now with the Mission Impossible franchise. I believe he's done the last couple. But in the end, I just love what these films have become. Obviously, I feel that ever since it was, I believe it was Mission Impossible 5, which was like the last, like really, no, maybe it wasn't 5. It was Rogue Nation, I believe, that was like one of my favorites because not only did it have some awesome, crazy stunts in the film that Tom Cruise did obviously did himself, which makes me just respect the franchise so much more. But also you have this dynamic of a fun story in it too. I feel like the story has kind of gotten lost in the later films also. So it says McQuarrie here has done Rogue Nation, Fallout. So he's done a couple of the films that I've actually been a pretty big fan of. That being said, I do think that there is a reason to be cautiously optimistic because if there is anything that we know this film is going to deliver on, it's going to be beautiful cinematography and also beautiful stunts. I'm still just blown away, in fact, by the stunt that Tom Cruise did where he was hanging off the side of a plane. Again, even though he's got all of the safety harnesses around him and everything, an actor hanging off the side of the plane as it's taking off, how many actors in Hollywood could honestly say that they would do a stunt like that? And put themselves on the line and put their lives at risk like that? Not many really would ever feel like doing that. I mean, this is a guy that's going to be flying a jet plane, rather he's going to be flying a fighter jet, even though he's not going to actually be flying it, but in a fighter jet, and actually was able to convince and push for the other actors in the film to be in a fighter jet. So this is the guy who I feel like is really pushing the bounds of not just stunt work, but also pushing the bounds of what actors do in stunt work, and I think is motivating other actors to start doing their own stunts as well. And even though that has led to certain delays on various projects, obviously he had an injury, I believe it was with the last Mission Impossible film, that caused it to be delayed quite a bit. I'm still pretty excited for this. I do have some concerns because one of the producers is J.J. Abrams, but I don't really exactly remember how many of these films have been produced by J.J. Abrams, so maybe a good film can still come out of it, especially when you have so many other producers on, including the director and writer of the film, Christopher McQuarrie. And so I have a lot of hope for this film. I just cannot wait to see what is going to be the next big stunt. Not to mention you have a lot of fun with the cast. You have Tom Cruise, Ving Rhames. Again, Ving Rhames, he just fits so well in this story, and I just cannot wait to see him in this. Simon Pegg is coming back in the film as well. I don't really know a whole lot about Henry Czerny, but he's in the film. Also, you got you got Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, Vanessa Kirby, Frederick Smith. Don't really know a lot about them, but you also got new people coming into the film. Haley Atwell, I think she's fantastic. I'm very saddened by the fact that her MCU show was canceled because I think it was one of the better ones, easily about it. And also, you got apparently Carrie Ewell's coming back, even though he's again. In the real lives, a lot of these people are definitely on the woke train. It's still pretty exciting nonetheless to see new faces come to this story, and I think the acting prowess is still there. As you can see, though, this is expected to come out September 30th in 2022, and there is another film, Mission Impossible 8, expected to come out the following year. So I'm wondering if they're going to be filming these movies around the same time with such a short turnaround. Obviously, because of COVID, this film has been pushed back a lot, so I'm wondering if they're doing that, trying to shorten the time just a little bit. All right, coming in at number 2 for my most anticipated films of the year is one that's caught the internet by storm with a pretty badass trailer, and so that is a film called The Northman. So I'm not a big fan of Robert Eggers, if I'm going to be honest. The last film that he did, I believe it was the last film he did, was The Lighthouse, which I both loved and hated. I loved it because of the way it was shot. The guy used actual film. The guy also used actual lenses that would have existed or would have been created around the time of when the film was set to have happened. So I thought that was really cool. So the filmmaker is a true filmmaker, and I love him for that fact. However, I do have some issues with the films like that of The Lighthouse because there are just so many weird story elements there that are very hard to get attached to and are very hard to really truly enjoy. So obviously there is, again, some cautious optimism here, but the trailer for this film just looks absolutely phenomenal. This is a film that is an epic historical film set in 10th century Iceland. So I think that there's just so much potential for this film, maybe because it's going to be more grounded in reality. It'll have a better shot of actually producing. But it says here it stars Alexander Skarsgård, who, again, a very talented guy there, as a Viking prince who sets out on a mission of revenge after his father is murdered by his uncle. So Could be a lot of fun here, but also it's got a pretty solid cast as well. So not only do you have stalwarts really of his franchises, because I believe that he also did the film The Witch, and Anya Taylor-Joy kind of got her big break in that film, was kind of put on the map because of the work on that film. So she's coming back in this film. You also have Nicole Kidman in the film, Klaus Bang in the film. Don't know much about him, but hey, him being Danish will probably help with the authenticity of the film. Anya Taylor-Joy in the film. Again, you know that I think that she's one of the most talented actresses currently working in Hollywood right now. You also got Ethan Hawke coming into the film. That'll be interesting. Bjork is in the film. Again, she's Icelandic, so there is at least that element to it. But Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is truly magic, and if I could say anything even more positive about The Lighthouse, his performance in that film was phenomenal. Him and Robert Pattinson both deserve so much more recognition for that film than they actually got, and if there's any stalwart, if there's any standout, not just the cinematography of that film, the acting in that film, especially from Willem Dafoe, is by far the best. And so I think that Northman has a lot of reasons to be, a lot of reasons for us to be excited for it. Filming began, or rather took place between August and December of 2020. So that's pretty crazy that they finished principal photography and they've just been delaying it, I guess, trying to find a good time of the year to release this film. But man, oh man, the trailers so far have been pretty awesome. And this looks pretty great. Also, Willem Dafoe is playing a character called Heimer the Fool. So that makes me even more excited for this. But this is expected to be released April 22nd, 2022. So not too far into 2022. Very excited for this film to be coming out, and I'm hoping it lives up to the hype and it does not fall into the weirdness that oftentimes Robert Eggers can fall into. And let me just double check here. Yeah, so he did do The Witch and also The Lighthouse. So I was not a big fan of The Witch. Couldn't get into it. Turned it off after a few bit because it was just very boring. Lighthouse, on the other hand, was really good, except for the story, which got really weird at times. And I think that's kind of his motto. Anyway, so this is my number 2 most anticipated film of the year. With my number 1 most anticipated film of 2022, this has been my most anticipated film for like the last 2 years now because of all the delays. But it is still Top Gun Maverick. Top Gun 2. I'm just so excited for this film. Not only do you have Christopher McQuarrie on the writing staff for this film, so that's an interesting connection there with Mission Impossible, but also you have Joseph Kosinski coming in to direct this movie. And the reason why that is so incredibly important, not to mention Claudio Miranda coming in as cinematographer, and again, just look to his own accolades for that. But this is the guy that has made one of my favorite films of the last several years, than that film being Oblivion. So this dude both produced, wrote, and directed on his own graphic novel, the film Oblivion, which to me is one of my favorite sci-fi films of the last several years and has some of the best cinematography and best, I would say, visual effects that I've seen in a movie, and it still holds up. So this guy has done a lot of really good stuff. Obviously, Tron Legacy did have some problems. I imagine that studio interference probably had some issues. It was his directorial debut as well, but he's just learned a lot. I mean, he did Oblivion. He did Only the Brave, which if you've not seen that and you want to see a more grounded story, man, oh man, that is freaking awesome. Watch that film. It's fantastic. Apparently, he has also got another film, Escape from Spiderhead, set to come out as well. It's a sci-fi action film directed by him. So that to me gives me more reason to even be excited about it because it's another sci-fi film. So if it's anything like Oblivion or it's done in the same quality of Oblivion, I think that could be really cool. But having him as a director for this film has me excited. Not to mention, if you've seen the trailers, you know that this film is set to be phenomenal. This or at least is to look phenomenal because you have actual cameras attached to actual fighter jets with the actors actually in them, experiencing the G-forces, doing all that stuff. That to me has me so excited. Now, they're not flying the jets because there's some legal issues there. Not even Tom Cruise could get away with that. But the fact that he has them in the film just truly is amazing. Not to mention, you have Miles Teller, who's going to be in the film. I think that is going to be awesome. Ed Harris is in the film. Val Kilmer is coming back in the film. John Hamm, Jennifer Connelly. You've got a strong cast here. And so I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited for this movie. I know there's some people who are going to put in the comment section, yeah, but what about his jacket? And they took off the Taiwan patch. I understand the concerns there and the kowtowing to China, and you know I will call that out. So if I find any nonsense in this film, I will definitely call that out. If they do actually put a major release date in China for this film, you know that will be an issue. that I will definitely address. But for me, it's just hyper focusing on such a small thing that it, I think, is kind of, missing the forest for the trees. And so until anything else really comes out in the marketing of this movie or in the film itself or how it's being pushed to other countries like that of China, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic for this film. And again, I think cinematography and the visual effects are going to be reason enough alone to be incredibly hyped. This film is set to be released in May of 2022. Of course, unless there are any more setbacks, any more delays, which I'm hoping there are not. Anyway, those are my top 5 most anticipated films. So what are y'all's thoughts about these films? Are you excited for Top Gun, Maverick, The Northman, Mission Impossible 7, Babylon, The Batman, or even my honorable mention, Death on the Nile, or any of the other films that I did not mention? Obviously, there's a lot of DC films that I did not mention because I am not a big fan of the DCEU. Just going to be honest with that. And there's some other films that I just haven't really heard about. So let me know your own top 5 most anticipated films of the year in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, loud that fire button if you're watching on Odyssey. Again, you're all amazing and beautiful people. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my January Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members. Starting first off with Locals, shout out to Kara Tharp, UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson, Biffer DeHobbit, and Robert Barnes. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on the Locals platform. Also a shout out to my Subscribe Star people, UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson once again, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stan 4, John B, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK Man. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on the Subscribe Star platform. And lastly, to my Patreon supporters, my 30 Patreon supporters over there, animation commentator Brandon, let's go Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Hannibal Grimm, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyle, 79, Lance, Laura, The Modern Major General Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Allen, Stan Andrian, Miss Martin Muses, Theodore Benden, and Tina Bojan, and of course, Tina B, the Empress of the Universe. Thank you all so very much for your love and for your support. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and at the end of every video, please make sure that you support me over on a Patreon Subscribe Star or on Locals. Also, you get a ton of other goodies if you support at the Army of Asgard level and above. Starting at the Army of Asgard level, you get access to various giveaways that I do during the month, including various 4K titles. Many of them 4K Steelbook titles, and so if you want access to that, check out the Army of Asgard level on those platforms specifically. You also get access, once you are a Keeper of the Bifrost level member, to that, plus a podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger, where you actually get to ask us questions, and also, of course, get access to that and the library of previous podcast episodes. We're up to about 33 episodes now that we have been able to do. I think most of those episodes now at this point we've actually done it together, which has been a lot of fun. And of course, you can join at the Chosen of Valhalla live stream, Chosen of Valhalla live stream level, where you get access to not only all of those things, but also you get access to be featured on the channel once a month during the Chosen of Valhalla live stream with the other Chosen members, which is always a lot of fun. Also, during your first month, you get a free t-shirt sent anywhere in the world. You just let me know your size. Let me know the t-shirt that you want from the store over on Teespring or on TeePublic, whichever you prefer, and I will gladly send that out to you if you're at that level. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.